Okay, this is take two. I accidentally deleted the last time I tried this one. This is the last video in this chapter. Let's hope I can actually do it this time without having to redo it. Alright, so last video we talked about changes in Mexico, changes in Argentina, changes in Brazil, some of the bigger countries here in Latin America. Obviously can't talk about every individual one, it would take forever. Now let's move on to, once again, the United States of America, taking a larger role in the South. We talked about this, conquered about half of Mexico and added that to the United States of America, Texas as well too. But now America's going to start getting more involved in Latin America. So the Latin America export boom. So we saw countries like Argentina and other countries. Now they're free of Spain and Portugal. They can do business with anybody. So they start doing business with everybody, especially industrial England and France and Germany and then the United States of America. And so a lot of Americans, a lot of everybody, Europeans, are starting to look at Latin America as a wealthy place. We already talked about England getting involved with loans and getting involved financially and resources. Well, now we're going to talk about America. Well, and post Civil War, we're more united and more able to expand. Why didn't America just conquer? Well, the same reason that England didn't conquer, right? These were equally powerful countries and stuff. So we're not going to conquer. We're not going to go to war with big countries like Mexico anymore. It's just, hard to do, and it would be more costly in terms of American lives. And then the other problem is, what do we do with the land afterwards? Most of Latin America was not fitting with the idea that was common at the time of American white manifest destiny. So, America's going to get involved, but much more like the way England and other people are going to be involved. Um, America becomes an industrialized power a little late in the game, like Germany. Germany wasn't a country until the 1870s. America's not really a unified country until after the Civil War in the 1860s. So America comes late to imperialism, can't take over Africa, can't take over India, can't get really involved in China yet or in other places because other Europeans have already gotten themselves involved there. So America is going to have to look for other places, other places to take over. They don't want to go to war with England or France. Those are powerful countries. Even Germany. These are powerful places. So they're not going to try to take colonies from them. But they look at Spain and they say, "Ooh, Spain is weak. Spain is on the ropes, and they're a weaker country in Europe, and they still have some colonial territorial holdings, mostly islands around the world." It's true they lost like all of their lands. They lost all their empire. They lost, Brazil for the Portuguese, but then they lost everything else. The Spanish lost all of Mexico and all those places. They still have these islands, and Americans started looking at it and saying, I bet we could take those islands. Cuba, the Puerto Rico, the Philippines, all these islands. I think we could probably take these from Spain pretty easily. Meanwhile, other American newspapers and American people started to feel sympathy for the people, especially in Cuba. The Spanish were ruling Cuba still in a colonial way, like Haiti. Horrible abuses of the people, really like concentration camp style stuff as well too. Some horrible abuses, and many Americans started to become critical and say, "Hey, America, we should do something. We're the land of the free and liberty, right?" And even though we had just fought against slavery and dealing with our own issues, but now we're the moral authority, and we need to end the abuses of the native people. And so this is a great political cartoon here of Uncle Sam, hands tied, blindfolded, with American military might, right next to Cuba. You can basically, it's like between here and Lima, Ohio, is about the difference between Florida and Cuba. And so we're really close to each other, and we're just standing by, not doing anything. Meanwhile, Liberty is calling out to the people of Cuba. So here's Lady Liberty calling out to the people of Cuba, wanting to help them and free them, but the American military is doing nothing. So a lot of Americans were looking at Spain and its colonies because, well, wealth and power, we can get those for resources and stuff. And other people said we need to liberate the colonies of Spain for their own good. We need to help the people who are living there still under the abuses of the Spanish. And so, anyways, Americans are itching for war, and this is going to lead to the Spanish-American War. The Spanish-American War begins in a kind of a silly way. So America has a ship just outside of Cuba. I think it was outside of Havana Harbor, but it was just outside of Cuba off the coast, and it blows up. It's the USS Maine, and the Maine is exploded. And immediately the American newspapers, like the next day, start printing that the Spanish have attacked the United States of America and that they've attacked one of our military ships unprovoked. We didn't do anything. We just had a ship next to Cuba, and they attacked it and blew it up. The American newspapers largely are the reason why we're going to end up with war with Spain. So our ship blows up off the coast of Cuba. We immediately blame Spain. Now, in reality, modern day history, we've had people go down, scuba divers and archaeologists, and they've looked at it and they say, hey, it looks like the explosion didn't come from, cannonball or anything like that. The explosion came from the inside. The USS Maine was a coal ship. You see these stacks here, the smokestacks. The USS Cole was a steam-powered battleship. Sorry, USS Maine was a steam-powered battleship. And when the Maine was sailing around, it would have to carry a large amount of coal. Well, coal-powered steamships occasionally burst into flames. They would occasionally build, a small spark down in the bottom holes where they kept the coal, and they would spread and eventually go off like a bomb. That was actually pretty something that happened commonly in the 19th century. Well, the USS Maine blows up, most likely from internal problems. We blame it on Spain, and that's what's going to cause the Spanish-American War. And I apologize, you're going to have to hear me swear here, but the slogan of the Spanish-American War was, remember the Maine, to hell with Spain. And so America goes to war because of a ship exploding and starts the Spanish-American War, which is funny because we call it the Spanish-American War, and those are the two places where the war was not fought. The Spanish-American War is a straight-up colony grab. We may have had people in America, feeling sympathy for the Cuban people, and then we were obviously upset because our ship got blown up, and we blamed it on Spain. But the real reason why we went to war with Spain was to take over their colonies. That's the real driving force. We wanted to take land from the weaker power of Spain. So, Spanish-American War, a ship blows up off the coast of Cuba, right, close to the United States of America. The first battles, the first attack during the Spanish-American War are in the Philippines. The first battle takes place over here on the other side of the world. The United States Navy had already been ramping up even before war was declared and before this was all happening. We were already ready and excited, really, to go to war with Spain in the Philippines. We wanted to take the Philippines. This was going to be our opening. This was going to be our lead into having some economic influence in Asia. And so we wanted the Philippines more than anything else. Ship blows up over here. First day, we attack over here. We actually conquered the Philippines faster than we thought we were going to. The American Navy were blown away at how easy it was to conquer the Spanish Navy, and then we start conquering the islands, using the Filipinos as well. So the native and Filipino people who were fighting against and hated the Spanish because the Spanish were cruelly ruling them over there, they sided with America and to conquer the islands back over. The United States of America told the Filipino people that we would give them independence if they fought with us to overthrow the Spanish. And we don't. They will get independence in the 1940s, post-World War II, but America is going to hold on to the Philippines for a lot longer than they said they were. And there's actually a Philippine-American War as well, too. But anyways, we fight in the Philippines, we fight in Cuba, we fight in all these islands, and we eventually conquer these islands, and they sort of join the United States of America. Now America is going to get colonies around the world. We're starting to rise up as a bigger power. So war started with Spain. We blamed them for blowing up a ship. It was actually just a colonial grab. So America's taking over more of Latin America. We're not going over the big countries. We're not going after the ones who can fight back. We're going after a lot of the smaller colonial powers. All right. So next step is Teddy Roosevelt. So President Roosevelt, right around the turn of the 19th and 20th century, it's going to have a huge impact on America and Latin America. So one of the first things he does is the Roosevelt Corollary. The Roosevelt Corollary is a corollary, so it like correlates, it adds on to the Monroe Doctrine. The Monroe Doctrine said no more European colonization. This side of the world is closed, right? There's no more Europeans coming over here to colonize the territory. Roosevelt adds on to that, says, okay, yeah, not only can Europeans not send colonies and militaries over here to take over this land, but if you have a problem with any of these countries in the Western Hemisphere, any of them, so if England, France, Germany, whatever, if any of you have a problem with these countries, you talk to us first. You have to go through the United States of America. The United States of America is essentially the police force. So let's say England loaned money to some country over here, and England loaned the money, and then the country defaulted on the loan. They refused to pay it back. England can't send a navy, can't send a military to whatever, Venezuela or whatever, without checking with America first. America will handle all the issues. So America becomes like the police force for the Western Hemisphere. So kind of in a way, America's kind of claiming dominion over half the world. So that's the Roosevelt Corollary. The United States of America is now in charge. Europe's over here, native people over here. Next, Teddy Roosevelt, he will then build the Panama Canal, which you've probably heard before. The Panama Canal, excuse me, is built right here on Panama. It's an isthmus. Connects, I believe is what it is. It connects over South America and Central America, and there's just a little bit of land and some natural waterways there. Many Europeans had planned and hoped to build a canal there because they realized how important it was. If you could build a canal right there, this tiny little bit of land here, if you can build basically a water connection from here to here, then it will have less than half the time it takes to get to the east coast of the United States of America to the west coast. It makes it a lot faster to get from one side of the country to the other. Also, later on, like today, modern day 21st century, cargo ships still to this day from China come over here, come through across the Pacific Ocean and cross through, go to the East Coast or go to Europe. The Panama Canal is still incredibly important to this day. So how does it get built? How do we build it? Well, a lot of Europeans, there was a French company that tried to build it. A lot of Europeans are going to fail. Teddy Roosevelt will get it done. How did he do it? Well, he wanted to buy the land. So he wanted to buy the land originally that would eventually become the Panama Canal. And he and Congress started to get negotiations. I'm going to should check my geography. I believe it was Venezuela. They get involved with debates over how much they should buy it for, and the price just keeps going up and up and up, and Teddy Roosevelt's getting frustrated. Congress is talking, nothing's getting done. So Teddy Roosevelt goes and he makes an offer to the Panamanian people. He goes to the local Panamanian people and says, look, I will foster a revolution. You will, fight and get independence and become your own tiny little country. Panama's not a big country, but you'll become your own tiny little independent country with American support. We'll give you military training, give you military aid, give you weapons. I'll give you everything you need, and you'll become an independent country on the condition that once you're independent, you will give me the Panama zone, the Panama Canal zone. And it works. Panama fights a war. We basically foster a revolution in another country. That country with American support and American backing, wins their revolution, and then gives the Panama Zone over to the United States of America. You probably starting to figure out why some countries don't necessarily trust American diplomacy, but this is something that happened 100 years ago, and this is how the Panama Canal will get built. Teddy Roosevelt gets the domination of the land, starts building military bases there. We still have military forces in Panama because we view it as a national security issue thing, and he gets the Panama Canal Zone dug out. Now, obviously, he's not doing it. A lot of the people who worked on the canal are going to die terribly from yellow fever. But anyways, the canal gets built, and now America has easier access from the East Coast, where most of our shipyards are, to the West. So not only just the West Coast of America, but also now our new colonial holdings, things in the Philippines, eventually, our involvement with Japan and places over here. So now it'll be easier for America to be more involved with the Pacific Ocean. Of course, this is also crucial, World War I, World War II, and we'll talk about all those things later on. So Panama Canal, pretty important. We kind of got it in a shady way. All right, I like this political cartoon. This is kind of showing the growth of the United States of America. And let's see here, a lesson for anti-expansionists. So a lesson, like they're teaching the anti-expansionists. There were people in America who started to question our expansion. This is teaching them a lesson here. America started out as a baby, right? 13 weak colonies that became states. We're just small, and nobody in Europe would have taken us seriously. But then we start to expand. We get territory from France. Then we start taking land. Andrew Jackson kind of takes Florida from Spain, but then America is growing even further. We're getting coast to coast. Then we start taking over Hawaii. We're starting to expand, take over Alaska. And then America is now taking over colonies, just like England and just like France, and we're becoming a big world player, just like England and France and Germany, all these other countries. Now they all have their hands out to us. We are at equal footing, maybe even better. The United States of America is a growing power. And so, anyways, now all the nations are anxious to be on friendly terms with Uncle Sam's. We went from a baby to being this in a relatively short period of time. America grows very rapidly during the 19th century, and a lot of it deals with taking things from Mexico, taking things from Spain, taking things from France, and eventually growing up to having a big military and a big, economy. We'll say that. All right. Recap. So Latin America countries followed a path similar to the United States of America and Europe, but oftentimes with different outcomes. A lot bumpier, a lot rougher transitions. Many more conservative cultures. A lot of times where United States of America adopted religious freedoms, that's going to be a hard sell in many Latin American countries. Very little social change. This in many ways is kind of similar to America. We fought a revolution against a power on the other side of the world. It was just a political change. Well, Latin America is kind of the same. And actually, Brazil held on to slavery longer than anybody else. So there were some changes, a lot of political changes. Latin America has some hang-ups still. Not much social change. They're going to hold on to slavery in some places. Um, you know, much more conservative about religious issues, so on and so forth. Anyways, imperialistic legacy. This is tying in with their economies, especially the imperialist legacy of exporting, basically mercantilism, right, is going to lead dependency on the rest of the world, be it America or be it England, European powers. So these single resource exporting economies throughout all of Latin America are going to develop, and sometimes they're going to be great, like Argentina. When the rest of the world wanted to buy their beef and leather goods, things were awesome, and Argentina was doing a huge amount of business and was very successful. But then when the Great Depression hits and people stop buying foreign-made goods, they're going to collapse entirely. We see this very commonly in Latin America, and the legacy is set right about now. It's from mercantilism, and then through the revolutions, they never really solved this problem. Most countries. Economic hardship still common to this day. Most of the places in Latin America are still largely based around one resource. Think like Venezuela. In 2019-2020, their economy basically entirely collapsed. They had oil. Their main resource is oil, and that's their main industry. When oil was selling for a large amount of money, they were making a large amount of money. And then when the oil prices fell apart, so did their economy, so did their government. And we see this very commonly in all of Latin America, and arguably all of the rest of the world. Russia, China, anywhere, European countries, Germany, Italy, when their economies are stable and the economies are doing well, and people feel like they can feed their kids and go to work and all that stuff, democracy and republic and all those great government ideals are very commonly accepted. But then when things turn bad, when the economy tanks and people are afraid and they don't have access to what they need to feed their kids and stuff, dictatorships become more common. And we see this still happens to this day. And not just Latin America. It happens in Africa. It happens everywhere around the world. Solid, stable economics lead to a solid, stable government. Unfortunately, Latin America has just seen that a lot worse than a lot of other people around the world, and it's because of mercantilism. And yay, we're finished with this chapter. Let's hope I don't delete this video.